Right, so today we're looking at the Agfa Isola, which is a very basic 6x6 viewfinder camera made in Germany in the 1950s. You could call it a very basic version of the Agfa Isolette, which is a bellows camera, also made in the 1950s. The first thing you notice in the difference between these two cameras is of course that the Agfa Isolette has the bellows, but it also has much more shutter speeds and aperture settings, and it's also much heavier built. You can feel a difference in the weight. The Isola has much more plastic than the Agfa Isolette. So, well, the Agfa Isola is meant as an affordable pocket camera in the 1950s, and well, I found mine in a flea market for the price of a beer, so I could not resist it and try filming it. But before I show my photos, I will show a bit closer how to use this camera. The layout of the Agfa Isola is quite typical for cameras of the time. You have, well, the lens in the middle, viewfinder, shutter button, film advance, tripod socket. So yeah, nothing strange there. The thing that is different on this camera though is that you have a collapsible lens. So to be able to use it, you have to pull this lens barrel out. So it has this sort of solution instead of having a bellows. All the settings of the camera is set on the lens here in front, and well, this one is a bit loose here on mine. I need to, well, glue it back. So you can tell this camera is a bit more cheaply built than the other ones since parts are glued. In any case, so first of all, you have the shutter setting, which is here, and you have three shutter options: bulb, 1/30th and 100 of a second. And I would recommend using the 100 for handheld shots. Then the aperture is here on the other side. And again, this is loose, but it should be like this. So you have 11 and 6.3, and well, actually everything in between, you can have it like in between them. So it maybe is f8 or something. The focus on this camera is not coupled to anything, well, because there is no rangefinder for it to be coupled to, and it's completely manual, so well, you have to guess the distance. And you set the focus distance with this wheel here, and the choices you have, well, is 1 meter to infinity, so there is some choice for that, but I mean, I don't know how precise it is. It's a bit of a guess focus. But you will have some depth of field if you put it to 11, so I mean, if you focus at infinity, you will probably have something in focus. But for portraits, it's a bit more difficult. On the top here of the camera, you have this red dot next to the shutter button, and this is the indicator for the double exposure prevention. So if you advance the film, take your shot, it will become red, and then you cannot take one more shot before you have advanced. Then, well, inside the camera, it is this opening. I don't like it really so much. There's this latch here, but it doesn't come open so easily. You have to sort of pull here. It doesn't pop open like on other cameras. And well, for loading the film, you have these things that you first pull out, but they're not that easy to get the spools in here. It's a bit fiddly. You sort of have to bend it, and well, trying to do this through the viewfinder of this other camera is not so easy. But it requires some fiddling to get in there, so that is not so very good on this camera. On the back of the camera, you have this viewing window for the frame number, and there's no way to close this, so be sure to keep it out of the sun, because otherwise you could have light leaks. Yeah, but otherwise there is not so much more to say about it. It's quite a simple camera. Let's have a look at some photos. My experience taking photos with the Agfa Isola can well best be described as chaotic. Well, first of all, because I went out in a snowstorm, and secondly, once I got out there and set up my shot and so on, pieces started falling off the camera. No critical pieces, it was like this thing here in front, which has the information for the focus and other settings. So it was just to find it in the snow and put it back. The second part which came off is this collar here around the lens, but I don't know, I just turned it back and it's now quite sturdy again, so it will not come loose, I think. And well, the third thing is, well, user error, I would say. In the first shot, I forgot to focus. It can happen, you need to set the focus separately, so. And then the shots after that, well, I by mistake was using 1/30 of a second. I intended to use 100 of a second, but I noticed it can go quite easily by mistake to 1/30th, so that's one thing to be aware of this camera. Always check the settings before you click the button. Shutter button, that is, there aren't really any other buttons on it, so. And the next mistake is that, well, I was checking the camera before I went out that everything is working properly, the shutter is firing as it should. Yeah, everything seemed fine. But once I was taking pictures, after I had figured out to put all the settings correct, is that the shutter did not fire directly. It was a little bit of delay. So I was like first aiming my shot, I clicked, then I put it like that, and then it fired. So yeah, I have a shot of a ceiling from somewhere. Now, the reason for this could very well be the cold, but when I got home and checked a bit more, I noticed that the behavior is a bit erratic when it's not exactly on this 1/30th of a second or 100th of a second. If it's like between this selector, I noticed that it's more chance of it behaving in a strange way. I don't know if it's something just with my camera, but I mean, it's something to be aware of and test a bit more thoroughly before you go out and try the camera, I think. But once I had figured out everything and didn't do any mistakes anymore, I actually got quite nice shots. The lens of this camera is not too bad. I mean, it's sharp enough actually. It's quite sharp when you zoom in on the photos. Of course, limitation is that you have very few settings. This is like f11 100, so you need to have quite a lot of light to be able to use the settings, or use a tripod. And of course, the other limitation is that you cannot focus very precisely. I tried to focus close onto something, but it's a bit off, not very nice. So yeah, it's a bit, you have to guess the focus basically, or bring a measuring tape, but that's not very practical at all. So yeah, just guess it is the best method with this sort of camera. If you're looking for a very cheap medium format camera, I mean, it is an option, but I would rather recommend like a bellows camera, like this Agfa Isola or the Silicon Nettar. And yeah, I have had quite good results with the Silicon Nettar, so it's a very good pocket camera, cheap medium format camera. Still, the Agfa Isola is not a terrible camera. I mean, if you use the ideal settings, you can get quite nice results, and the lens has a look of its own also. But in any case, I think this is all about this camera. If you have any questions, just ask. In any case, see you in my next camera video. Bye!